All right, so today on the podcast we got Baeza. Issae is a barber and owner of Wolf and Rye. I met him getting my haircut at Wolf and Rye. It's my favorite shop in Claremont. He's also a painter, father, so many different things. But welcome to the podcast, man. What's up?
Thank you, Jimmy King. Thank you, folks. I'm happy to be here.
Dude, all three of my listeners, man. What's up? So I feel like we already had a long conversation tonight because we've been hanging out. We've been eating, drinking, hanging out for many hours now. But I think we left some good stuff in the tank. There's a ton we could talk about. But I don't know. Maybe we start off with painting because that's something you've been getting into a lot. I've been checking out your Instagram. Yeah, tell me about painting, how you got into it, and yeah, what kind of drew you to it.
Thank you, man. Painting, I've always loved art. I like being creative in many ways. I think painting is something that came to me with the help of my sister. I was going through a tough time. I felt like I had a lot of anxiety. I'm a person that I don't know if I like taking medication, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's different strokes for different folks. For me personally, I feel like that's something that I want to steer away from. So I think painting was my outlet. That was my medication. It helped me a lot. It helped get rid of a lot of the anxiety I was dealing with. Earlier, you and we talked about, painting, when you're doing that, it takes a lot of focus. So you're working on this one thing and it's hard to concentrate, right?
Yeah.
My input to that would be that I'm painting dozens of pieces at the same time. Mm-hmm. Which is why I'm putting out so much art in such a short period of time.
So you're not doing one start to finish. You're kind of eclectically working on multiple things.
Yeah, right? I'm doing a bunch because
at one time.
I like patience a lot.
Yeah.
And I've something I struggled with my life, but I figure like now as you get older, you learn patience. You learn a lot of things. So with that being said, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm working on this project, but I have to let this dry. I have to let this kind of sit for a while. Let me work on this thing. Let me work on this thing and this project too. And then the ideas are always flowing. And I like that because it's like I'm working on 3 other projects, but somehow I can come back to the first one and think, oh, you know what? I was doing this, but this will actually look better. And so you tweak it a little bit. And that's another thing I love about art. You can make it go in so many different directions.
Yeah.
You know, and still get a really good outcome. I love that. It's almost like a simile or like a metaphor to life. You know, it's like you can go so many ways, but it doesn't mean that there's one right way. You can still get a great outcome, you know, taking like the road less traveled per se.
How did you get into painting? Was it, you mentioned your sister?
Yeah.
Or well, I guess what drew you to it?
Yeah, so I always liked it. I would paint from time to time, nothing serious or nothing even good really. Where you would say, oh, he's a painter. You wouldn't say that. It was just more like a hobby. But I think in the last year, I've gone through a lot of struggle or a lot of mental struggle where I needed an outlet. And my sister's a therapist, and she suggested, oh, why don't you paint? I think this may help you. And I was using children's paint at the time.
Really?
Like, you know, yeah, and like small canvases, man. Like,
so you just went and bought kind of whatever you could get.
I was using those at first. Yeah, I was using those. And then I figured, I'm at my sister's house like 4 times a week. I think I need to get my own paints and my own canvases. Yeah. And I started with that. But I shit you not, the very first, out of the 4 canvases that I made, I sold 2.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I from my understanding of art and artists, most people just create stuff for years and years and never sell anything. They kind of just do it on their own, but you wanted to sell it from the beginning, or it just kind of worked out that way? Or
yeah, it just worked out that way. I didn't intend to. I saw it as like, okay, this is what's helping me with anxiety right now.
Yeah.
But from the jump, I feel like I'm not a very vulnerable person, but friends and family, they were like compelled me, like, okay, you know what, you should post this. It's good. We like it. You should post it. And yeah, as soon as I posted 2 of the 4 paintings that I initially made, they sold right away.
That's just on your Instagram. You just
my
Instagram,
yeah.
And people hit you up and they're like, I want to buy this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What did that feel like when people reached out and wanted to buy your thing. Also, can I have you stand a little bit or a little bit closer side?
It felt amazing because it's something that I started doing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you see, oh wow, other people are responding well to this, or they like it to the point where they want to buy it and put it in their house or office, you know, man, it's very humbling.
Yeah,
it feels nice.
That's interesting because I think I started creating music in 2019. I make really bad music, not as good as you paint, you know, but I think what made it fun for me, I did like the act of making music. It was innately satisfying, like just the act in and of itself. No external validation, anything. Just making the music in and of itself was satisfying and kind of cathartic or therapeutic in certain ways. But when I shared it with other people, like in my office, who just, you know, would sing along to it or whatever and get hyped to different stuff, it makes it, I guess it takes it to a different level. You know, it makes it more like, oh, okay, this thing that I'm creating, I put out into the world and people can enjoy it or consume it or they're excited about it. It kind of takes that innate satisfaction and makes it I think art is meant to be shared.
Yes, it is. Yeah. What kind of music were you making?
Oh man, it's my friends call it bubblegum rap. It's like Lil Yachty, like early Lil Yachty type of stuff. You know, just kind of, I don't know, fun, cartoony pop.
Oh, you're gonna have to play
I'll
a track for us.
I'll put it on for sure. But it was just fun. I started listening to this podcast called Dissect. It's on Spotify. And every season he goes into, you know, a different artist and one of their albums. Like one season was Kanye, Dark Fantasy. Another one was Tyler, the Creator, Flower Boy. Another one was Frank Ocean, you know, Blonde and Channel Orange. And it made me, I've always been a consumer, I guess, in my life of art and entertainment. But that made me think, okay, these guys, you know, they're amazing artists. But their starting point wasn't any different than mine. You know, they didn't have some special thing that happened to them that made them immortal, whatever, right? They weren't some, I don't know, like untouchable thing. It was like they all just started from kind of this human background, and it made me motivated, like, hey, if they can create art, I can create art. And it made me change my thinking from consumer to creator, which is like, it's cool because I think you've been doing that as a painter, and it's just kind of it's a weird cheat code I think you unlock in life where you're like, okay, I don't just have to watch shit on YouTube. I can make stuff that people watch, you know?
And that, I think that's the cool thing about YouTube, you know, or even now in today's generation, and I'm going to hate myself for saying this later, but TikTok. Because I refuse to download TikTok. You know, I'm like super old school.
Man, we sound like old geezers.
Yeah. But the thing is, TikTok, you know, a lot of kids see that and they're like, oh, I could do that. Or how many kids now learned certain dances, you know, and now they do them because of TikTok. And I learned from a person once, they said the world would be a lot happier if we all danced. You know, and I just took that for everything. You know, we would be a lot happier if we danced. We'd be a lot happier if we show our creativity, if we were a little bit more vulnerable.
Totally.
You know, and I love that, man. That actually ignited like this fire within me to just be more creative. Once upon a time I used to do music, and this is back in the MySpace music days where I actually uploaded my own tracks and stuff like that.
So this is what, early 2000s?
Late 2000s. I started making music. I wrote my first song when I was 16 years old.
Damn. So, okay, so you're 28, I'm 27. So this is 12 years ago.
Yeah.
This is 2010-ish.
And I lived very fast from 2010 till about 2016.
Okay.
Where I was performing live, recording. I met so many cool artists that are even super famous now.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know you were that deep into music.
Oh, I loved it. But it feels like another lifetime at this point, you know?
Like you formerly were an artist.
I feel like I formerly was an artist and I took a long break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're getting back into it.
And now I'm just exploring in a different sense. I don't want to be a famous musician now per se, but I love that I could still go back to that and be vulnerable in that sense. Be vulnerable in the sense of like, oh, I want to write this song, and I could do that, you know, with ease. And I take that I guess I would take that for granted, because a lot of people, like you said, they're in a consumer mindset where they receive it, but they can't create it.
Yeah, that is. It's a weird thing to get out of your own head. I think when I was creating music, I just kept judging stuff that I was making initially, and until I could make that jump of, okay, screw it, I'm not going to judge myself. I'm just going to make whatever I'm going to make, and I'm going to be proud of it. That's a huge jump to make.
We're our own worst critic. I find it interesting. We're always learning about ourselves. I find it very interesting that I can post my art from only doing it as early as November of 2021, and we're in January 2022 right recent now. And I was able to post it just by a few people telling me, hey, this is good, do it. With music, at some point I had a real following. And to this day now, I struggle with recording something and posting it online, because I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound as good as I'd like it to. Or you know what, this is not professional quality. Or this mic does not sound like a studio mic. I don't want to put that out into the universe.
Yeah.
I feel a very emotional connection with music that I'm scared to share with everyone else, because it shows how vulnerable someone is.
Yeah, it is. I think publishing or sharing art is kind of the ultimate act of bravery, you know? Because you're totally putting yourself out there in the most vulnerable way. Especially with music, and I mean painting as well, though. It's such a personal thing, that you judge yourself, and then making it so other people can judge, and people have opinions on blah blah blah, and that noise seems really loud. I think I don't know, it made me hate less on artists that I don't vibe with. We all have those artists where you're just like, okay, whatever, I don't like this guy. But it made me appreciate kind of everyone a little bit more, because they have courage, because they're putting something out there. And I think people that are kind of just sitting around critiquing, of course, like we all have opinions. That's part of being human, But I think until you've created something, you don't have an appreciation for the courage that it takes. And then I think with all other artists, you just have like a mutual respect, I guess, where, hey, you overcame that fear of, you were tripping, you didn't like the way your voice sounded, you were cringing at this and that, and you re-recorded yourself 9 times, and you paused, whatever, right? Like you got over all of that, or you hated whatever you did on the canvas and you ditched it and you did something else, or so on and so forth. But yeah, that's, I think across any medium, whatever it is, painting, podcasting, music, it's ultimately it's courage, I think.
Yeah, man. I actually remember as being a teenager, I had a friend that was in a band. He was an adult, and I traded him a drum set. It was like a starting kit, a $200 drum set. I traded it for a tape recording device, and some distortion pedals and a wall pedal.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember I would track myself on this tape recorder and listen to myself and be like, oh man, I don't like how I sound, or I have not found my voice yet. And you have to rewind the whole tape and re-record everything, like this is old school. And it took a really long time for me to be like, to be happy with the way I sounded. Like, oh, okay, this is me, or I finally found it. And it wasn't until I discovered an artist by the name of Justin Uzuka. He's actually a Canadian artist. His brother was on Degrassi.
Really?
I think his name's Philip Nezuka. Was on Degrassi.
Same era as Drake?
Yeah, okay. Same era as Drake.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never watched that, but it was a good show.
I actually played a show with them at Hotel Cafe.
No way.
Yeah. And I met the brother.
Wow.
Yeah, the one from Degrassi. He was actually a lot more popular than his brother at the time. And I remember the first time I ever listened to him, I'm in the car, and my friend's playing a CD from him. She was actually my sister that was playing the CD from him. And I was like, wow, this guy sounds really good. And he did sound good, but I think what really captivated me was that he had so much emotion behind his singing. He sounded like he meant it, and almost like he was crying. It wasn't like, oh wow, he hits this note really good. It was just, I can feel that emotion behind that. Yeah. And I think that's when I found my sound. Like, oh, okay, I don't need to sound like anyone else. I don't need to sound like the guy from Taking Back Sunday. I don't need to sound like anyone. I just need to find it, like, let out my emotion, let my voice come out. Yeah. And when I found that, I think I really was happy with what I was producing and putting out there. And it just went from there, man. And I went really hard. And I'm telling you, to think about the day where I first listened to that CD of this guy, Justin Uzuka, and then to be playing a show and opening up for this guy.
No way. Oh, you opened up for the guy that...
I opened up for the guy.
Wow.
And it just came full circle. And I remember going up to him in the green room and being like, hey, this sounds funny, but the first time I heard your CD, I thought, like, oh, I want to do what this guy does, and now I'm opening up for you.
Crazy.
Yeah, and
That's chills.
He was pretty young too, so he was like, "Oh, that's cool, man," and he shakes my hand, right? But he didn't know how much it meant to me. For me, it was kind of like full circle. Yeah,
maybe he did. Maybe he didn't know how to deal with that. Some compliments like that are maybe hard to process on the spot, especially for a young dude. That's a lot, but that's cool. You gotta have that moment. I feel like that's something you're gonna remember for the rest of your life. Those kinds of moments where you get to meet your heroes, and then something like that where it's so direct and you get to perform kind of alongside with them or before them. That's special.
Yeah, man. We were at the bar earlier today, and there was this talk about this chick performer, and they were going, like, the bartender was obviously a very big fan because she didn't believe.
She's big.
She didn't believe the conversation, but
I just saw her perform. Like, she's big,
Yeah, and that's crazy because I told you the story earlier. We'll tell it for the listeners here. But the first time that I heard about this artist, her name is Phoebe Bridgers. The first time I heard about her as a big artist was when a friend called me and she's like, "Do you want to go to the show?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. Like, I'm down." And she's like, "You didn't even ask what show it was. You just said yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, because I'm down for any show. I just want to go."
Yeah.
And she laughs and she's like, "Okay, well, it's gonna be emo. This girl's name is Phoebe Bridgers." And I start laughing and I was like, "Oh, do you guys know each other or something?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I say, "How do you know that I know her?" And she's like, "Shut up! Like, you don't know that we know each other, or you don't know, like, what are you talking about?"
Yeah, you don't know Phoebe Bridgers.
And I was like, "Is she with you right now? How do you, like, why would you call me randomly and be like, 'Hey, do you want to go to watch Phoebe Bridgers with me?'" And she's like, "Are you messing with me right now? Do you actually think you know this person?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." The crazy thing is, man, me and Phoebe Bridgers used to play open mics together when I was like 16 years old at the Claremont Folk Center.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, because she's from the area, right? She's from LA or
yeah, I think she's from LA.
Yeah.
But I learned this until later, but I think she even went to like a high school for music.
Yeah.
So I think, and it shows when she would play shows, she was so mature. Musically wise, man, she sounded amazing, and she would be playing with the people that were a lot older than us, like backing her. And playing like these super intricate instruments. Yeah. And I would just watch her and be like, "Damn, you're amazing." Or go up to her and be like, "That was a crazy set." Yeah. And I never knew that she was actually like 2 years younger than me at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, she was just so...
kind of beyond her years.
Yeah. Yeah, so she deserves everything that she's accomplished right now.
That's crazy. She's a superstar for sure. I didn't hear about her until earlier this year. And I was behind the curve. I was like you, I mean, one of my friends wanted to go see her. I didn't have that connection that you had,
Yeah.
And so I started listening to her music, and it's not my traditional style. I'm usually listening to hip hop or pop or, whatever it is, Kanye, that type of music. And so Phoebe Bridgers was like totally out of left field, but yeah, she has a really interesting... It was funny. Your friend described her as emo or whatever. It's like kind of somber music, low key music, but it's really beautiful. One of her songs, Kyoto, I really like a lot. I think it was New York Times or whoever does those pieces, a diary of a song, and they were talking about how she wrote that song in Japan, and yeah, it's funny. I think her producer had to convince her to make an upbeat song because she's so used to making these kind of like song or slow ballads rather. And yeah, Yeah, I really fell in love with her music. I think it's really special, and it's interesting because it doesn't feel like it's mainstream kind of pop music, but it's really cutting through, and her audience is so diehard. Like, she wears that skeleton onesie, and everyone was wearing that shit. It was cool. It was a trip.
I think something that makes me very happy and almost proud to just to know that person, or to have known them, you know, at a certain time, is that you wouldn't expect, like you said, you wouldn't expect that. When I started doing a certain genre of music, because it's what I liked, which was folk, I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool, and I could see myself doing movie music. So every time I wrote a song, I'd be like, oh, this would be fitting for this scene in a movie.
Oh, like film score type of stuff.
Yeah, and I always thought about it like that. And to see that she's almost playing a very close genre to what I would consider that I played, right?
Yeah.
But she broke that barrier, man. She's really, really famous now. And she, you know, she's in shows, she's in movies. I think she did like SNL before.
Yeah.
She's done Letterman. Like, she's done,
right pushing on mainstream, if not there.
Yeah,
some people would say she's very mainstream. Yeah.
And I think that is so sick, because not to knock on any other artist, but there's one of my favorite artists, being like Ben Harper. You know, he's reached a level of success where he's pretty much set, and he's played with some of the greats. He's played with Jack Johnson,
right?
But you know, she's kind of had this level of fandom in modern culture, which I think is super cool, and it's through sad music.
It is. It's through emo music. My favorite artist through the pandemic was Joji. I don't know if you know Joji. You know Rich Brian, right? We were talking about Rich Brian. So that label 88 Rising that signed Rich Brian, they signed another artist named Joji. I'll share the music with you, but it's not. I always describe him as Japanese Frank Ocean. So it's like, it's a lot of, I guess, I don't know, lo-fi hip hop. Pop, sad boy pop songs, and and that music I wouldn't expect to cut through. And Joji's kind of cutting on mainstream. I guess he's mainstream, but I don't know, that kind of music I guess connect, especially for this time. I feel like artists like Joji or Phoebe Bridgers are so perfect for, I guess, pandemic era when everyone's kind of locked up and in their own heads. It makes us feel not so alone, and it's super relatable.
It's relatable. You think like, oh man, someone else is going through this shit, or people feel like this too. I'm not alone. As soon as you said like, oh, like the Frank Ocean poppy thing, the first name that I thought of was Daniel Caesar. Oh, and I just had to say that because this guy deserves all the credit in the world.
I love Daniel Caesar. What's that song I've been listening to nonstop? Japanese Denim. You know that song?
You think of Daniel Caesar and you're already saying like My Blue Jeans. You're already singing that line in your head.
Yes.
He's so sick, man.
He's so sick. He's crazy. I just discovered him. I love, I don't know. I have a hard time discovering artists because I feel like I have that bar in my head of artists that I love. Like if you're not as good as Frank Ocean, like you're not going to make it in the rotation. But then you discover, like in your Spotify or whatever, right? Just Discover Weekly or whatever, Daily Mix, and then you come across someone like Daniel Caesar, which happened for me literally a couple weeks ago, and it's mind blowing. Like how many other artists are there that I don't know who you've been listening to lately?
I listen to a lot of sad music. I listen to a lot of folk music. Recently, I had met somebody that was like, I just went to a James Blake concert.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. James Blake. I performed with him before. And in my head, keep in mind I have not performed with James Blake.
Okay. You're just messing.
But in my head I thought she meant James Bay.
Oh, someone else.
Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, like I've opened up for this guy before. So I'm thinking like, okay, I've done smaller shows with James Bay. That's cool. Like now we have something relatable.
Yeah.
And this like person is freaking out because she's like, "Why you play with James Blake? I just saw him at the Hollywood Bowl." And I was like, "Oh shit, we're talking about someone completely different right now." So I go home and I start listening to James Blake, and it wasn't really. I had to find a few songs before I gave up on it, or before, cause initially I would have probably gave up on him. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It wasn't like what I listened to, but there's certain songs, two in specific, that I was like, oh my god, this is what makes this guy. This is amazing.
I gotta guess. Retrograde.
Retrograde was one.
Limit to Your Love.
And I learned that was so popular that Retrograde was like the song.
It doesn't even matter. That song
right?
is a banger. Yeah.
But the other one that I was so stuck on was let me find it. I might not even know the name. I just know that it had that effect on me. Let's see. Thank you, Spotify, for saving all my music, by the way. Radio Silence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that song was, I don't know if it was just in the moment that I was feeling something, but that song was very powerful. I was like, oh shit, this guy's good.
Yeah. He has a really haunting voice.
Haunting, yeah.
Yeah. Kanye, I talk too much about Kanye, but Kanye is a huge James Blake fan. I think his music is it's so unique, and Retrograde sounds kind of like a Hans Zimmer film score, right?
Yeah, this guy is the definition of like, he makes movie music. You're listening to his songs and you picture a scene right away.
Totally.
It's just a lot more digital now, but that's where the world has gone.
Yeah.
You know? Which is why, again, like, a lot of credit to Phoebe Bridgers, because she's not using all that digital stuff, and somehow she's very relatable still.
Yeah,
you know,
she's very acoustic, very kind of guitar, drums, just the classic instruments, not a lot of effects.
The fact that we were at a bar earlier today and someone went crazy for her.
Yeah, that blows your mind, right? Because you were friends with her, and
it's like
it's strange. Yeah. I don't know. Music is interesting. I think music is a super special medium because it's so instantly relatable to everyone, and music is so pervasive across. I was reading some book where they talk about how music is played at funerals, it's played at military ceremonies, it's played at anthems, it's played at soccer games, it's played everywhere, right? It's played at wherever you are. Music is that one thread that's just so. Like, it even cuts across language, right? Like, in the U.S., K-pop is super popular, BTS, whatever. French music is popular here, and our music, English music is popular across the world. And it's one of those mediums that I think is so instantly relatable in ways that maybe others are not. Like maybe sculptures are not, like, someone would really appreciate it, but then maybe 99% of people wouldn't understand what they were trying to get across. But music is like, you don't have to explain it. Music is kind of pure transference of emotion in a way that is like, and I think it's the replayability of it, right? Like, how many times are you going to watch your favorite movie? Maybe 5 times, 10 times if you're really crazy about it. But your favorite song, you're going to play it 10 times a day, right? Yeah. Retrograde, when you find it, you're going to play it 20 times a day on loop, right? So it's like music is for sure, it's special.
Have you heard of narco corridos? Do you know what that is?
No, what is that?
Narco corridos is basically the Mexican version of folk music. Folk music is basically the fact that you're telling a story, right? That's what folk is. You're telling the story. And narco corridos have this rap of like, oh, the only people that listen to this music are people that are in drug cartels or people that want to live that life.
Yeah.
The funny part about that is,
why does it have that? Is it like narco stories? Is that what it translates to?
It's narco stories.
Okay, because when you're saying narcos, I'm thinking Escobar, and I'm thinking
but that is true. That's very you're on point with that. It's not so much focused on Escobar because these are Mexican folklores, but it's very centered around Mexican narco drug lords.
Like Sinaloa cartel type of stuff.
Yeah, Sinaloa, Guadalajara drug cartel. And this is as early as the 80s,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stories about these characters, and it's funny to think, like, people look at that in outsider's perspective, or even like someone from Mexican culture, and they're like, oh, they're listening to a narco corrido. Oh, you don't want to mess with them, or that's the type of person they are. But if you translate that into English music, it's like folk is such a depressing and put into such a small pocket of like of genre or criteria that it's like, oh, only certain people listen to folk, only sad people listen to folk, whatever, you know.
Interesting.
But folk in general is just the fact that you're telling a story through your music, right?
Like a narrative.
Yeah.
So it's is it almost gang music, or what is it?
And
because it sounds like it's
and
like
that translation of narco corrido, it's like gang music.
Okay.
But it's I think what people like most about it is that it's actually telling a story, and they like that. So it's like you watch the movie American Gangster, and you can't help but root for the gangster, right? It's almost like that. It doesn't make you a bad guy for listening to it or liking it, but you're just kind of like, I want Denzel to prosper through this movie. Like he's a badass. I
think those are the best kinds of TV shows or movies. The bad guy who you can relate to, who you can understand. Did you ever watch Breaking Bad or any of those?
Yeah. You want Walter White to, you know?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Are you big into TV shows or?
I don't watch too much TV, but I have favorites, you know?
What are some of your favorites?
I did like Narcos for a long time.
That's a great show. Yeah.
You was a good show.
Is a good show. Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah.
I did watch that, yeah. That was like one of the biggest shows on Netflix for a while. I loved it. I didn't expect to like it, you know, because it seems like one of those chick flick, and I guess it is, right? It's geared probably towards women.
It is, but in a weird and fucked up way. You're almost thinking like, there's so many things that happen that are so close to real life.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh wait, am I like this a little bit?
Totally.
You know, and that's kind of scary, but also intriguing. Like you're stuck.
You're so in this guy's head. Joe, I think is his name, and you get to hear all of his thoughts, and he's a sociopath, right? Or some sort of crazy person. But you get to hear some of it, and it's like some of it is. I mean, it's very dark, but it's like, oh, like I kind of relate to that a little, which is, and I think everyone kind of feels that. Whereas like these TV shows that are so, I don't know, over the top, like some dark piece of it you can kind of relate to, you know. Like I don't know, it is interesting. My favorite one I always talk about is True Detective. I don't know if you've heard of that show. Yeah,
I've heard of it. I've never watched it, but it's like watching True Detective, Forensic Files. You're watching these shows, but the whole time you're thinking like, oh shit, I wouldn't have done that, or they could have gotten away if they would have just done this. You're already planning it on your head.
Exactly. That show was special to me. I think I don't know. I like those slow burn shows where it's like it has to hook me in the beginning. Like I won't make it through the first couple episodes unless there's something there that gets me. And I think I don't know what it is. I guess Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, like some of my favorite actors, and just the tone and the music and the vibe is just very dark, and you could feel like it was building towards something, and there was all this pressure, and then their relationship was really interesting. But that show is really cool because I won't spoil it for you, but basically the format is it's 8 episodes, right? In the first 4 episodes, it's a flashback, right? And they're recalling these awful crimes that happened in this southern, I think it's somewhere in Louisiana, right? This southern town. And then in the basically the 4th, I think at the end of the 4th episode, it breaks and they merge with, so this is all like a flashback, and they're recounting it. But in the 4th episode, they like come to the present time, and so they basically like solve, like it basically this is this unresolved crime in the past, right? And these 2 cops are basically in this interrogation room, and they're answering questions for the current cops. So it's like flashing between. I'm doing a horrible job of explaining this, but basically it's like these cops who were like formerly trying to solve this crime are being interviewed by the present time cops who are asking these questions because they're trying to solve this crime. And basically that's the first 4 episodes. And then at the end of the 4th episode, it's kind of revealed that these cops who are being interviewed about their past, their experiences, they meet back up and they go solve the crime because it's like not going to get solved without them. And so it's just really interesting because the first 4 are just kind of this slow pace, and you're okay. What's going on? Like, why is it moving so slow? Like, why is there all this build up? And then from episode 5, 6, 7, 8, it just is like, you're just holding on. And it's like they earn that. I think a lot of people maybe dropped off through episode 1, 2, 3, 4. But like, if you make it to 5, just the payoff is so, I just have chills thinking about it because the payoff is so good. I usually can't rewatch TV shows. There's very few, but that one I've watched 7 or 8 times. It's that good.
Have you seen Mindhunter?
Oh, I love Mindhunter.
That probably has to be my all-time favorite show. I'll put that out there right now on the podcast. That's my favorite show.
Okay, that's like an all-time.
Yeah,
dude, what is it about sociopaths or killers that people love? That I listen to so many true crime podcasts, but Mindhunter is special. Mindhunter is amazing.
And then I think like the casting was amazing. The actors that they got to play these real-life serial killers, they're like identical. And then the interviews they do, they're spot on. You watch a taping of the live interview, and then you watch the show, and it's like,
oh, I never done that.
They even look, the mannerisms are the same.
Oh, I think I remember the big guy.
Ed Kemper.
Yeah. Oh, he was creepy. And I did remember seeing the kind of the side by side, and he looked like the real guy. That guy's a great actor.
The Charles Manson actor too. They actually use the same actor for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's right.
Yeah, he does amazing at being Charles Manson.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great show. Yeah, I think it's always those dark shows that are most interesting. The Narcos, the Mindhunter, and one I watched recently that I really liked was The Witcher. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
I never got into it. I think I tried seeing the first season.
Couple episodes,
but see, like I never even played video games, so I didn't understand what it was about.
Yeah, I didn't play the game either, but for some reason I can see why that show wouldn't take with a lot of people. You know, it's very fantasy, it's very sci-fi, it's very kind of video gamey. So, but that's the interesting thing about shows. I've stopped recommending shows to people in a super kind of like, you're going to love this kind of a way. And I've realized that because, I don't know, I've recommended shows where I'm like, okay, True Detective, everyone's going to love that show. It's objectively the best show of all time, blah, 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 right? And I'll go recommend it to someone who I think has pretty similar taste to me. And then they'll watch 3 episodes and they're like suffering. They're saying, oh, I can't make it through 3 episodes. And sometimes I want to, like before I wanted to nudge them and, say, just give it a shot, blah, blah, blah. But I realized over time that people just have different tastes, like you can't force that. If you watched a couple episodes of it, you gave it a fair shake, you just don't like it.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how we just like different stuff, and it's so subjective. Like taste and
however,
TV shows.
You probably broke a lot of those barriers because that fucking show has everyone talking about.
That's true.
Like Cardi B posts about.
No way.
You.
Oh yeah, you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Some shows do cut through and like have a very wide following. Yeah. One show that was like that where my recommendation just didn't take was Squid Games, right? Everyone was watching that this year, and I recommended it to one of my friends, and they were just like they watched 3 episodes and they suffered through it because I was recommending it so hard, and they didn't like it. I don't know. Did you watch?
Yeah, I watched
it. What did you think?
I watched it very late, but I see what's captivating about it. I'm watching it, and I need to see this through.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a hypothesis about everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I think this.
Yeah.
My hypothesis was actually true by the end.
Oh, so when you're watching it, you like to make a guess as to what's going on or what the end is going to be.
Yeah. Okay. And in this case, I was right. So
what did you guess?
I thought that the old man from the jump, I was like, he's behind this.
No way.
How? Remember when he makes the decision at first, like to continue the games or to end them? I was just like that. He had nothing to lose. Why would he end them?
I had no clue. Wait, so I would have thought that what would have made me think he was behind it all was if he continued the game. But for some reason for you, because he was the deciding vote and he said end the game, right? So why did that make you think that he was behind it?
These people were already in the hole, and they took a chance.
Yeah.
He knows, like, I'm captive. I know how to captivate people. I know how to bring them back in. I think.
Oh, so you thought he knew that they would come back?
Yeah, this guy's the mastermind behind all this. And keep in mind, these games have been played before. Remember the Files? That was not the first Squid
all
Game.
over the world.
There was a bunch of them. And then remember, he did not have a file for his number.
Did you catch that though when you caught that?
I caught that when I'm watching the show.
No way.
Not right away. Like,
okay. I had to watch the explainer videos to get both the thing where he decided that and his number being missing.
Yeah.
There was one other thing where in the peekaboo game or whatever, when the robotic girl is turning around and shooting them if they move, like when she's looking through the crowd and like they're all lighting up in green.
Yeah.
If they moved or lighting up in red, he didn't light up at all. That was another like giveaway.
I didn't notice that one.
Yeah, I didn't. So
I'll
I
be
didn't
real.
know.
I didn't
but,
notice that.
Like but you noticed everything else. Like you noticed if you they mentioned the thing about how he ended the game.
Another thing is it's pretty gory. The show, they show everyone's death.
Right.
They didn't show his.
That's true. So you took that kept. So you had that idea early, and then it just kept being reinforced and reinforced.
Keep in mind, let's go back to it. In that same scene, I think it was an Indian actor. What was his name?
Yeah, I forget his name.
It was an Asian actor.
Yeah.
So we all fell in love with this character. Yeah. We can all relate to him, and we see him die.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we don't. In that same scene, we don't see the old man die.
Yeah, maybe the most lovable character die, but then we don't see the old man die.
Right.
So then you were like, okay, I'm right.
Yes.
Damn. That's a crazy good guess. That I feel like watching shows would be fun for you because mind trip shows like Mindhunter or Lost or whatever, you could just be guessing from the beginning who's the bad guy, because they always show the bad guy in like the first scene, right? Like he's there somewhere. But that's crazy. That's a good guess. I would have never ever predicted that. I'm never like that. I can never predict I always fall for the kind of the easy tropes or like, the kind of the bones that they throw you to kind of mislead you in the wrong direction, whatever. Yeah. That's like my theory, and it's just an obvious thing. I never know, but it's always those very kind of subtle things that kind of reveal the truth.
Have you ever watched Hereditary? It's a horror film.
Oh my gosh, that movie made me nauseous.
I know.
I actually was watching that in the theater and I threw up.
Oh shit, you're serious?
No,
It actually did make you nauseous.
I threw up.
Wow.
During I won't spoil it for everyone, but I guess I will spoil it for everyone. But in the final scene, when kind of she goes, like they go into the attic and kind of discover everything, I had to throw up. It made me feel really. I watched it again so I could see the whole thing through, but I don't know. It made me uncomfortable. Yeah.
So see, from the start of the movie, I was like the grandma.
No way.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I just
gave you the creeps.
Yeah, I was just like the grandma. This.
No way.
And then by the end of the movie, it's the grandma. Yeah. You're like, oh fuck, this lady. Yeah.
No way. That one was.
This is what I don't understand because I only watched it once.
You gotta watch it again.
Was she passing the torch onto the grandson? Did she pick him? Like, you're gonna be.
Oh, I don't know, and I'm gonna sound very dumb on this podcast because everyone's gonna know. It's been a while since I've seen it, but doesn't the grandson die?
Damn, I'm gonna sound dumb on this podcast. It's been a while.
I was. Let's rewatch that.
Please be forgiving. I only saw it once, but I thought that she was almost like trying to get him to be this, like.
I think so. She was trying to pass on because she was in this super deep cult.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you're right, but it's been a couple of years since I've seen Hereditary.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Oh man, that movie freaking gave me the creeps. Like the most memorable scene to me is when. Who's burning by the fireplace, and then he's like freaking out, and all of a sudden you see the demon in back of him, like hanging off the.
Gosh.
Oh, that.
You're giving me chills just remembering.
Do you remember that scene? Okay, that's like imprinted in the back of my mind right now.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Oh.
Yeah, that movie was. I'm a big horror fanatic. But see, like I like watching Michael Myers movies, even like the old Freddy Krueger movies. Yeah. They're
Wait, so Michael Myers is like the Friday the 13th.
That one's Halloween.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then like
but
Freddy
Krueger,
Freddy
and Jason.
The Freddy Krueger movies were like, those were Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
And if you watch those now, they're almost like comedic, like they're funny to watch. They're fun.
Because they're not as scary as the stuff that we got now.
Halloween always scared me. I'm not gonna lie. Michael Myers is always like, damn, this motherfucker just won't die. And he's walking, but somehow he always catches up to you, you know? So that was very scary.
That is creepy, though.
Yeah. But when they made movies like The Exorcist, you know, that really changed the game. That was scary for people because it was like, oh, this could really happen to me.
Yeah.
Or Hereditary, that was super scary. Midsummer, have you seen that? Oh my
gosh, I was just gonna ask you if you saw that.
That's such a trip too. And that could be very real, you know.
That
like,
could be real.
If you invite me to take a trip to Europe, I'm gonna say hell no.
Totally. Like there was not that much that was super. I mean, there was, of course, it's like fiction, but feasibly realistic.
That could happen. That's the thing.
The
it's super.
It
could be real, you know.
Yeah.
The Conjuring series, those movies are so fun for me to watch.
Yeah.
But they would scare the crap out of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is gonna be interesting. Because a lot of people that watch a movie and it scares them so much that they don't want to know anything about it. Yeah. For me, this Conjuring series scared me so much that I actually had to do research on it to make it less scary.
Like the couple who went and
explored these hauntings, yeah. And then
couple's crazy because they did like hundreds of.
Oh, they did many of them, and then to kind of like realize, oh, the movie exaggerated this was ease for me. I was like, okay, it was calming. Okay, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
But hell yeah, man, those movies left me so scared that I had to explore it and do more research.
Yeah.
And I think that the average person might be like, "Oh fuck no, I'm not gonna read into this anymore." Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, those movies are crazy. Midsummer, Hereditary, those two. I think they're the same director, right? In the same studio. Yeah. I think it's A24. Those stand out as like they're great films, right? But yeah, those films will both haunt me for a long time because they were so kind of elements of realistic and just that director or writer, I think he directed and wrote both, if I'm not mistaken. But
Hereditary and Midsummer, right?
That's right, same guy, right? Dude, that guy's got something whacked out. Like, he's so good at writing that stuff. But okay, we were talking before about kind of hypothetical careers when we were at the bar, because I was mentioning like, hey, have you ever thought about being a bartender? But I'm just curious for you, what would be kind of like what's a kind of a career that you've always admired from afar, but maybe you would never do, but maybe in another life would do?
All right, I think the honest answer to that would be I would have loved to have been an actor.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Not
because I think that I would have been good at it or anything like, or like just for the fame. Mm-hmm. Nothing else, but for the fact that when we're kids, we think, oh, I want to be an astronaut, and then you're like, no, I want to be a firefighter. No, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a pirate. This and that, right? But when you're an actor, you could literally be all of those things in one lifetime. And I think that feels amazing, right? Because especially if you're a good actor, if you take integrity in your work, you really dive deep and you dig into that to become this character. So a movie that always like stuck to me personally was The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Because in that movie, that's
Brad Pitt, I think.
Yeah, Brad Pitt. He's aging backwards, but he lives many, many different lives. At some point, he's a sailor, and then at some point, he's a husband with a child, and then at some point, he's like roaming the world in a motorcycle.
That's right.
Right, and I just thought, wow, this guy has lived so many lives. That's amazing. I would love to do that. You know, I'd love to be
even
able to
just
do
as
that.
An actor, right? Or do you mean like in real life, or as just playing as a role?
In real life, because as in a fucked up and twisted way, because obviously we know how this ends. How this movie ends. Right. He was able to live freely, such a ambiguous lifestyle. You know, he did so many things in the same amount of time that we have. You know. Yeah. But I think in modern time now, especially, we kind of like example. Oh, okay, I went through school, I got a job, and I'm gonna retire at this job, and then that's it. But then think about it. Then there's we'll go back to Phoebe Bridgers. That's like what, 26 right now, 27, and she's unorthodox. She didn't do that. She's living life. She's performing. She's like reaching people. You know, it's crazy, man. We all have the same amount of time in a day, and we're such amazing beings. We could literally do anything we set our minds to, you know, and you know, why settle for that? To explore it all. Totally. I remember I had like this teacher tell me once, and he was like, "You cannot decide to be stupid. That's not okay with me." Yeah. And he was like so mad, and that he was giving this like conversation from the heart to the class, and he was like, "I don't care if you're smoking pot. You have to be educated at smoking pot, right? Especially if you want to sell it. So it's like, you're not trying to get ripped off. So you have to do research to know what $20 a pot is worth. If you're going to spend $20 on that." Yeah. And he was right. Yeah. Because I had friends that were dumb as hell at school work, but they were like, "Oh no, bro, you paid way too much for a sack of 20." Like, right. You know, and so somehow they knew how to measure that sack, but they couldn't like figure out how to write a paper.
They knew the streets. They know.
Yeah. But it's like whatever you put your mind to, you actually do a little bit of research, you know, and you can't choose to be dumb at anything. You have to like whatever it is that you set your mind to, you have to really set your mind to it.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting. I think being an actor would be one of the coolest careers, because you kind of get to live multiple lives in it, like very quickly. Yes. Right? You get to try a bunch of different things. Also, it's kind of social. Like you get to interact with a bunch of different people, and you kind of get to do that school experience but build it up and tear it down and then do it again, which I think is really cool. It's interesting. I think what you said about oh shoot, what were you just talking about? It completely just slipped my brain. You were talking about being street smart. Oh my gosh.
I like drifted.
My brain is like completely, I had a point that I was thinking about. But I mean, that's cool that you had a teacher that kind of cut through and related to you on a level where it's like, you know, everyone's smoking pot, everyone's doing whatever, you know. I like those teachers that could, I think, cut through and relate to you in a certain way. And a lot of teachers just won't even acknowledge that kind of stuff. But I think those are the kinds of messages that you remember, you know, when people level with you and they talk to you in your own terms. And like, I think that I guess it makes you feel seen. Yeah. Whereas like most of our conversations with people who are 20, 30 years older, than it's just like whatever we say goes over, and then whatever they say goes over. But it's cool when they can relate.
You almost think like, oh, they don't know what my life is like. Or, they never lived this.
Right. Oh, okay. What I was going to say was you basically were talking about like you can we're amazing beings and we can kind of do what we want as long as we set our minds to it. I totally agree with that. I think one thing that one guy I really admire, Ben Horowitz, he's a venture capitalist. So he started a couple of technology companies, and now he's an investor in the Bay Area. And he gave a college commencement speech, and you know, most college commencement or high school commencement speech is like follow your passion, kind of generic sort of a message, which I think is true. But I think his took it to a new level, which is follow your contribution. So it's like a mix of what are you passionate about, what are you good at, and then also what are you uniquely good at, you know? So like, matching your passions with your ability in a way, and like unique ability. So like not only what could you go capitalize your skills on, but like what's a unique contribution you could make to the world that is unique to you, and like go chase after that. Like it's selfish to do anything other than that. And like basically being the highest calling. And I think that's such an interesting way of looking at it, right? Like sometimes pursuing your ambition is like, you could love, like maybe I love singing, but I'm not great at it, or, you know, and then that's not the thing, but yeah.
You know, like not to cut you off, but just precisely on that, art is so subjective.
Yeah, it is.
And I would never censor art. That's a whole another
Sure.
conversation. But art is so subjective that painting, for example, I could paint something and you could be like, oh man, that just looks like a blob of shit.
Mm.
But someone else could be like, oh my God, that really speaks to me.
Mm.
Or what is it about this that is calling towards me? When I would perform, I never thought I was the best singer. And I never thought I was the best guitar player either, because I taught myself how to do these things, right?
Mm.
And even when I was singing, I wasn't really singing from a place where like, oh, I sound really tuned right now or anything. Sure. I was singing from emotion. I was letting my feeling out through songs. And so if someone was like, oh, this guy sounds whack, I don't like it, that's okay. Because whatever you think of me, I'm probably judging myself 100 times harder than that. Totally. But out of 20 people that may be in the room to 1,000 people that may be in the room, if there's one person listening or one person that's singing along to the song, or that goes up to me and it's like, wow, this song really touched me, man, it'll make your week. You know,
1,000%.
It is just like, there's something that I wrote that this person felt really touched by.
Yeah. That's like the kind of the highest.
Yeah, man, that's like chasing that high that you get once, and the sad thing about, you know, a drug is like, you get that high for one time and then you're never going to beat that high again. You're always going to chase that first one. Right. But with music, it's like, or art, you got that high once, and every time you perform, you may get it again, and you may even get it tenfold, because maybe that first time one person listened and they reached out to you. But by the 10th time you perform, maybe there's 4 or 5, you know, even 20 people that are like, oh my God, I love this, or I need to listen to this. Right. Look at Spotify now. There's people that have never performed live, but they have like over 3K listeners on Spotify. Right. I think that sounds crazy, man, because I had to do open mics every day, you know, for like 4 days through a week, just doing open mics from San Diego to Inland Empire to LA, just trying to be known, get out there. And I remember reciting, I'd be like, Isaiah Baeza music or Issae Baeza music, follow me on this, on MySpace, whatever. I remember rehearsing that so many times because I was trying to put my name out there and I was trying to get shows booked. And now it's as simple as like, you never even have to leave your house. You just post your music on Spotify and you get followers and listeners, you know, and that's crazy, man. Yeah. It's a good thing. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing with music is, I think the message of follow your contributions is good, but a lot of people maybe sell themselves short and give up on themselves before maybe they have that moment that motivates them to get to that next moment that eventually like allows them to break through. A lot of people, like, you know, you were mentioning censorship, but I think the issue is not even censorship necessarily. In certain places it is. It's more self-censorship.
I think to go more with that topic, or to elaborate what I meant, is I haven't done an open mic in so long, right? And I went to an open mic recently. I'm not going to say the place. I'm not going to say who hosted it.
The one we both went to, right?
Yeah. You were actually there too. And I was so excited to reconnect with a part of me that's like, oh man, this is something I used to love to do. I haven't done it in a long time. I want to go watch. I didn't sign up to perform. I just wanted to watch the show. And as soon as I get there, we're in interesting times right now. We're going through a pandemic. This is a COVID time right now. But we get there and they're checking vax cards and masks and all this stuff. And there's people going on stage and they don't know whether they can perform on the mic without the mask or not. Like, you know, and they don't want to ask and they don't want to just take it off because they care what everyone else is going to say. To go along with that, before anyone perform, the host of the open mic goes up and they're like, hey, if you're gonna talk, please say your pronouns before, which is like, I may be old school and I might catch heat for this, but who cares what your pronouns are as the artist that's going up right now? Like, just share your art with the world, whether you're he, her, or they, them.
Yeah.
I just let us appreciate your art, you know?
I agree. Let the art speak for itself.
There was a place that I used to love going to when I used to start do open mics. It was called Back to the Grind. They're still around today. They had a big art piece on their wall that said, nothing matters here except that we all want to get along. So leave everything out the door. Race, gender, everything's out the door. But when you're in here, we all get along.
Yeah.
It should be that simple everywhere we go, in my perspective, especially when we're talking about art. In this specific situation, people were about to create art or share their art, right?
Yeah.
But we censored it from the jump by saying like, oh, please state your pronouns so everyone knows.
Kind of adhere to this profile.
Yeah. And then to go further into that, then they were like, if you're going to talk about suicide or depression, please let us know before your set so you give people an opportunity to walk out.
Yeah.
To me, that didn't sit well with me, because I was like, why? This is a place to share your art. You know, and I think that's very important too. What if I was going to sing about a song that at some point I felt like this was my end and I contemplated suicide, but then I found myself and this music saved my life? Maybe it'll save your life too. But you already took that opportunity away from me by censoring it before I even started.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's in my perspective alone, that didn't sit well, and I thought that sucked to censor art like that. Dave Chappelle, he released a Netflix special.
He got some heat.
And he got some heat. And I might get some heat for this.
No,
but
say what you think.
There was a Netflix employee that quit right after that Netflix special, because
I didn't know that.
There was a news article released on
Okay.
that, and it was basically, they said, I have to quit because I feel a certain way about this, and I've worked for Netflix for over 10 years.
Wow.
Remember that, 10 years. And Netflix didn't back me up on this. So I feel like I need to quit because they didn't stand up for me. This person was transgender. And the Dave Chappelle show got heat for
being transphobic.
Yeah.
Okay.
For being transphobic. I thought that was interesting because in only the last 3 years, Netflix had shows where there was certain actors that had been accused of sexual assault, of rape.
In their characters?
No, the actual actors.
Or
okay, actresses, right?
Okay. In their real life.
In their real life. Okay. And there was like, oh, this show's getting canceled, or the show didn't get canceled, or they didn't pull it off Netflix, or they kept it on Netflix, right? And this person didn't feel like they had to quit their job because that affected their moral compass.
Yeah.
But as soon as they felt triggered by the transphobia that they thought Dave Chappelle showed, they were like, oh, this is where I draw the line. After 10 years, I'm quitting. It was like, you only drew the line when you felt like it directly offended you. Right.
What about the other people?
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of hypocritical. You know?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think we have a lot of that now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's interesting. My stance on kind of free speech and what people can say and do is mostly kind of do whatever you want so long as it doesn't have negative externalities.
Yeah.
And I think saying something that's super offensive, even if I disagree with it, right? Or even if it's targeted at me and I feel like it's whatever, racist, offensive, bigoted, whatever, I honestly feel like that's not a strong enough negative externality for that person to not be able to say that, even if I completely disagree with it. I think we should have freedom of expression, especially when it comes to art, right? If there's a comedic purpose, you get almost a blank check to say what you think.
Yes.
And you should not feel scared of getting canceled, so on and so forth. I think people are very overly sensitive to that. Yeah, that does kind of rub me the wrong way. I mean, I think we should not make people feel uncomfortable or attacked, whatever. But like in a comedy special, come on, like in a Dave Chappelle, like if they would have watched Bob Saget, R.I.P. Bob Saget, they would have been 1,000 times more triggered than whatever Dave Chappelle. It's just weird. The goalpost has moved in so far, and it's kind of just it's like nobody's happy in that world.
No, it's not. You're just waiting for the next thing to set you off.
Exactly.
There's the thing that bugs me. It's comedy. You're forgetting it's comedy. It's supposed to be funny. You know. You're supposed to say that thing that you can't say. Yeah, I had an argument with someone because they were like, "Well, it's not funny, and maybe if Dave Chappelle wants to stay relevant, he should change his stand-up." I thought that was very, very funny because this person's a huge Smiths fan. Smiths from that, remember that band, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so if the Smiths would have stayed together and they would have made an album in the early 2000s, keep in mind, this band was big in the 80s.
Right.
They make an album in the early 2000s, but now this is alternative rock because they want to get with the times. Right. You would have listened to it and not think, oh, they sold out. This is not the Smiths that I liked.
Totally.
She's like, no, screw that. They wouldn't be the Smiths anymore if they made that. That's my point.
Double standard.
Dave Chappelle wouldn't be Dave Chappelle if he didn't stick to what he does, what we like him for.
Yeah.
I don't get how people don't, like, where they draw the line and they don't see that.
It's not logical. Mm-mm. And great art, I forget. I think it was on that Dissect podcast I was listening to, but something about like good art kind of gets with the times and is kind of pleasant and tolerable, but great art hits that target that no one knew you were aiming for. It great artists can kind of recreate themselves, can start from scratch, and can go in this other direction that you might hate for 1 year, but then in 20 years you look back like, holy shit, that was groundbreaking.
Art is supposed to make you feel. If you listen to something and it makes you feel happy, it did its job. If you watch something and it makes you feel upset, hey, it did its job.
Right.
But art is supposed to make you feel emotion, man. It's like you don't go to a comedy show and sit in the front and then when you get picked on, you get upset and leave or start a fight. Like, you shouldn't have sat in the front in the first place.
Totally. Plus, I think it's just generally good to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
Like when someone cracks a joke at you, like honestly, even if like I'm not condoning racism, but if someone cracks a Asian joke at me, I honestly 99.9% of the time think it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, me too, man. I actually just made a racist joke about Mexicans. I'm Mexican, by the way.
Yeah.
And I made one.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, but I think it's like very funny to be able to and healthy to be able to laugh at yourself, you know? And I grew up with thick skin because I grew up from very humble beginnings, and I grew up with a lot of my friends being black. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, coming from Mexico, there's not a lot of black people. Like, the black people that you do encounter, they're from Central America. Mm-hmm. So like, it was almost like, oh man, I'm encountering a culture shock. This is new, this is scary, it's unknown. But you learn very quick that, oh, these are my homies, these are my friends, these are just like everyone else in the world. We're all the same, and we all feel the same emotion. And so we, like, as soon as this is your friend that you hang out with every day, but as soon as they get mad at you, they're like, fuck you fucking Mexican, or this or that.
Right.
And you would kind of do the same thing, but you like develop tough skin, and that at the end of the day, you guys still love each other, and you're going to hang out and play cars or Hot Wheels the next day. Like, we were friends. Yeah. These are kids. Like, I told you the Mexican joke that I made.
Yeah.
It was, what do you call two Mexicans playing basketball?
Well, I don't know.
A waste of time. How many Mexican NBA players do you know?
Not many. Zero.
But, someone out there might find that very offensive. Be like, fuck that,
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I think that's objectively hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how I hate everything about cancel culture and virtue signaling and all of that. It's inauthentic to who we are as people, because behind closed doors we all say things that are, I don't know,
actions speak louder than words, for sure.
Like, how do you treat those people? How do you act, right? It's like, I think people take, sometimes people take, I mean, words definitely matter and words have power, but I think just how we use other people's words against them is so bad.
Yeah.
Because it's not an opportunity to cancel them. That's a learning opportunity for that person. It's
Exactly.
like your life's not over. It's just, hey, maybe what you said was a little fucked up. Maybe think about it a little differently. And if that person has enough self-awareness and empathy to consider your opinion, that's all you want from that person. They're not going to get it right every time. And that standard is too high. Like it's crazy how we cancel people for some shit they said on Twitter 10 years ago. Like, what in the world? Like, I don't know what I said on Facebook 10 years. Probably some really ignorant shit, you know? Like, if that's the standard,
I think Kevin
all
Hart had made like a tweet or some
Yeah,
Facebook post back
that.
in the day where he's like, "Oh, if my son was gay,"
I remember hearing
right,
about
and
that.
then he had apologized for it so many years later.
Because he was losing stuff, right?
Yeah,
People were.
But the thing is, like, I'm 28 years old. When I was growing up, I used to use the word gay all the time, just to say that something was whack,
just as a derogatory.
Yeah, but dude, I got nothing but love for all my gay brethren, you know, and sisters. Like, so to me, it was just like a thing that I grew up with. Like, oh, that was a funny word to use at that time,
Right?
And I was ignorant at that time,
Right?
But now I know. Now I have life experience. Now I'm more intelligent. Now I know, okay, we've evolved. Like, that's not funny anymore. Don't use that. And we don't. And we move on. But don't hold it against me for using that when, 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
Right.
It's different, you know?
I have the same thing. I used to use that too. That's gay as a derogatory thing.
Yeah.
And that's one where when people said to me later, hey, you shouldn't say that. And then when you kind of, maybe the first time you brush it off, but then you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that should not be used as a derogatory connotation. That is wrong, you know? And that's a very productive conversation, rather than if everyone was to just be like, okay, you can't talk anymore and we're not friends anymore, then I probably would have moved more towards that wrong direction, because I would have just felt alienated and isolated, you know? But people love me enough to say, don't say that. That's wrong. You know?
Yeah.
That's a much better way to go about it.
I was hanging out with somebody. Keep in mind, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, I told you most of my friends were black, right? Mm-hmm. And one of those friends, he's still a friend now. We kept in touch for a long time. He knows my kids, and my daughter's 2 right now. And I was talking to a friend. I was like, oh, hey, she's learning cuss words, and I think it's very funny that she's like learning these cuss words. And they were like, oh my God, does she know? And I was like, well, it's funny because there's certain things that she knows that are absolutely wrong and she won't say them back. And my friend that is black, it would say the N-word. Mm-hmm. And my daughter would get so mad. And she's like, no.
Oh, because she knows that's a bad word.
Because she thinks it's a bad word,
yeah.
Like herself. No one told her, hey, this is wrong. She just heard it and she didn't like it.
Yeah.
She took it upon herself to be like, no, that's bad.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And we would think it's the funniest thing ever that when he would say it, she would get so upset at him, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm telling this story and I say the word with ease. I was like, oh, well, the one thing you can't say around her is this, because she'll go crazy, right? And they looked at me in utter shock, like, I cannot believe you said that. Why would you say that word? Why would you say it with so much ease? What is wrong with you? Who are you? Like, attacking me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, people that you grew up with?
No, this was just a person in conversation.
Okay.
And then I was like, wait, hold on. You asked me about a story. I was telling you that story. I think that if you're hanging out with me, you would assume that I'm better than that, or you would assume that I'm you would kind of have an idea of the type of person that I am. Yeah. So you wouldn't think right away to go to that dark place. Yeah. When this,
to assume.
Yeah. But I was actually kind of shocked, man, because obviously I'm not ignorant to where the world's at right now. I wouldn't say that word loosely or anything like that, or even out loud to friends or family. But it was in a conversation where I was explaining, like, this is what my daughter thinks is wrong. You don't say this, and they just hearing the word out loud, coming from a person not of color, that would like set them off. And keep in mind, this person was not of color either. They just fucking they went off the rails with it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Damn.
To me, that was culture shock, because if I would have said that in a room full of my black friends, they would have laughed. Like, they would have thought, oh my God, your daughter's hilarious for you know. But this person did not even listen to the story. They just like took it. I cannot believe he said that word. Sometimes
those situations are unavoidable.
Yeah.
You know, it's just depending on how people think and how they react to certain situations. That conversation's going to happen. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The price you pay of being in the world, I guess, you know, it's like, it's kind of jarring and it's kind of disheartening.
Man, that's what I love probably most about my job. One of the things I love most about barbering is that you sit in my chair for 45 minutes. It's a very vulnerable experience. So let's say, just hypotheticals, you come in and you're very right wing, right? And I'm very left wing. We probably would never sit and have a conversation anywhere else. But in the barbershop, you kind of like have to, because you signed up for these 45 minutes, right?
It's very intimate. You're with that person for at least half an hour.
And we start talking, and at least in my experience, even if there's certain arguments, you guys always find a common ground. And it's by the end of that 45 minutes, you're like, maybe you don't have to agree 100%, but we're like, oh man, I understand where you're coming from. Or like, that changed my perspective a little bit. And I may not even let you know, or that person may not let me know, but they go home and think about that. And I think that's amazing. That's what we need. I always told myself, man, if politicians would sit down in a barber shop and have to talk to each other, they'd probably actually get somewhere.
They'd like each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. How did you get into being a barber? Like, how did that all begin?
I started cutting hair pretty early on. I'd say maybe like my senior year in high school. I had really long hair, right?
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like haircuts at all. My mom had gone to hair school, like cosmetology school, and we were her guinea pigs, and I had really bad haircuts. She's great. I just had really bad haircuts because I was part of like the learning process. Yeah. And so it ruined me. I was like, screw this. I'm never getting haircuts again. Wow. When I was 16, I moved out. Oh, you were
part of her learning process.
Yeah, I was part of her learning process. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So when I was 16, I moved out. I didn't get a haircut again for a long time. And then I was going to like the homecoming or like the prom, but I was an underclassman. And my friends, they were greasers. And they were like, no, man, you got to get a haircut for this. Like, you got to look good, you know. So I was like, okay. They actually booked my first appointment with a barbershop. They called the shop and they booked the appointment. And so I show up. And I get to this barbershop and they have Playboy magazines on the coffee table. Yeah. I'm a teenager. Yeah. I'm sitting down, people are cracking open beers, and I was like, oh, this is a clubhouse. Yeah. Can I even open this magazine? Like, am I allowed to?
Yeah. Just so innocent.
Yeah. But I love the atmosphere. And then I sit down and I explain my haircut, and this barber cuts my hair, and he gives me, I didn't have no facial hair at that time, but he gives me a complimentary shave because he knew it was my first barbershop experience. And he just kind of went through the motions. There was nothing to really cut, you know? Yeah. And it felt amazing, man, I was like, I need this. I'll be honest with you. I went home and I didn't like the haircut.
Really?
But that was the start of my career, because I went home and I didn't like the haircut, but I had clippers because my mom had given me clippers, you know, and I went through it and I was like, oh, I think maybe he didn't understand what I wanted, but I know what I wanted. So maybe I could tweak it. Yeah. And by the time I was done, I liked it.
Really? Oh, so I
successfully fixed, or thought I fixed, my own haircut. And I was like, wow, man, I just did it exactly how I wanted, you know? Yeah. Maybe I could do this. And so I thought, there's a lot of, how many people go in and they don't get what they asked for, or the barber didn't understand them. If I could understand every client, I think I could do a better job, or I could excel. And so that's the mindset I went in with. And yeah, from then on, man, this was me being a teenager to like getting my barber license in, I think, 2013. I graduated high school 2011. I think I got my barber license 2013. I took a long break because I worked at Kaiser Hospital for a while. And then I kind of had like an epiphany, like, what am I doing? I'm single. I don't have any kids. I don't have any bills. Why don't I do what I always wanted? You know, why don't I work for opening a shop? and that's kind of like I put it into fruition, and you can manifest things, man. And
Yeah.
I think that I manifested that with the help of family, friends, and loved ones. Like I made it happen.
Yeah. That's crazy. Was it scary opening up your own shop? Like, what were the steps that you took in between
I was super
working at?
scary. I set myself up when I knew that I wanted to leave Kaiser Hospital. I made a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a 6-month plan, a 1-year plan, and a 5-year plan. Right? My 6-month plan was, okay, I need to establish myself as a business, and I need to make myself like an LLC or an S corp, and get a studio space.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did is I established myself as an LLC under Chop House, because I was cutting hair from my house.
Okay.
And I put the square footage of the station that I was using as my business.
Oh wow. Okay. So you could do it. You could use it as a write-off and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and within the 6 months that I quit Kaiser, I established myself, and I was pulling clients from Loma Linda Hospital. So they were students
Really?
or doctors or teachers.
Just that you knew and were interacting with.
And I would play soccer, intramural soccer for Loma Linda. So I'd be like, hey man, I can cut your hair, come by. Or if it was a girl, I'd be like, hey, I can cut your hair, or I can cut your boyfriend's hair, your brothers or whatever, And I was just advertising myself, and I had business cards, and I'd go to downtown Redlands Farmers Market and like pass out my business cards.
Yeah.
And that's how I got my clientele. And so all these people were coming to my house, and I was pocketing all that because I wasn't paying rent on it. I was just paying my apartment rent.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I set myself up pretty good in that sense. My 1-year plan was, okay, by the time that I quit Kaiser in 1 year, I need to make $75,000 a year. Like I need to do that because that's the goal that I set. Otherwise, this is going to feel like I didn't meet what I was supposed to do. And within a year, I was making the $75,000.
Wow.
It wasn't through just cutting from my studio, but I knew like, oh, okay, this is not enough. I need to get myself out there and work at a barbershop. So I worked at 2 barbershops. I worked at one in Fontana, and then I worked at one in Claremont. And then when that was enough, I started working at one in Redlands too. So that at some point I was working at 3 shops, all different times of the weeks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then I got to a point where I could just drop it to 1 shop and just my studio,
Mm-hmm.
which was the Claremont shop and just my studio. And I hit that 75K in 1 year, right? My 5-year plan was a little different because that's when I was like, oh, in 5 years I want to shop,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through that time, I unexpectedly you started a family and bought a house,
Sure.
and so I was like, okay, maybe that's not in the near future, but it's still something I want for myself. But with the pandemic, the opportunity arose to get the shop while I was in escrow for my house.
Oh my gosh. So you were buying a house and buying a shop.
Keep in mind, this is within my 5-year plan of when I quit my
but just accelerated.
job. Yeah. And I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. And when I tell you with the help of friends, family, and loved ones, it's like I had all the support from my friends and family and loved ones. And then Johnny, my business partner, went in with me with this shop. And we both, kind of like went all in.
Mm-hmm.
And we put it into fruition, and we made something great out of it.
Yeah. No, what you created at Wolf and Rye it's special. It's like it feels kind of like a hub for the area. I think, it's nice. Like I'll literally walk by and say hi to you guys once in a while just to come hang with you guys because you guys are cool. It's one of those spots, and I think everyone you've hired there is awesome, right? Marco and Carter and just all those guys. Everyone's so cool, and it's. I was talking to Marco, and this is like an endorsement because people will say whatever when you're not there, right? But from what he told me, like he's super happy working there, and he enjoys every day, and that's very rare to find a job that you enjoy like that.
I think you have to go with a good mindset. Like me nor Johnny, we're not greedy at all. We just kind of want to be able to make enough for our families and ourselves, and see our friends prosper and make enough for their family and themselves, you know. Not everyone has that mentality, because some people are kind of straight up cutthroat, like, no,
take all the profit.
Yeah. And so the thing, I think that's the key to success. When you make relationships and you love people and you want to see them prosper, like, they'll stay, you know. You'll create a foundation. So it's like, man, Marco's killing it at the shop, Carter's killing it, Jose's killing it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things, like, man, you want these people, you want to build a family with these people, and you want them to stay long term.
Yeah.
And man, to see like the success that they've had in the short amount of time, where it's like, man, Johnny had to cut hair for like 14 years, you know, to be able to be where he's at now. I had to cut hair for a long time too, to be where I was. I think I cut hair now. I've been cutting hair for like 9 years.
Yeah.
And Marco has clientele in 2 years of cutting hair.
Seriously.
You know, it's crazy.
He's pretty booked, right?
He's pretty booked. Yeah. So it's almost like you look at him, and there's times where I'm like, man, I'm so envious. Like,
how did he get it so quick?
Yeah. But you can't. You feel proud, like, man, proud to be able to see that, and then proud to be their friend. You know,
yeah.
Like, oh man, this is cool. Good for them.
That's cool. I think people who are doing well in life, that also, like, there's two ways you can go with it. You can treat it as a money grab and just try and get to the next level of comfort or whatever it is, or you can kind of try and pass it on. I mean, you can do both, right? But it's so much more gratifying to help others and see others succeed than to, I mean, of course you want to keep growing, but there's something, like that feeling of being proud, or that's such a better feeling than kind of the envy or the comparison or the competition that you get from it. It's like, that's kind of, maybe that helps you somewhat in the beginning, and always to kind of have that edge to want to be the best. But with the people that you work with and you have relationships with, like, wanting to see them do better, that's such a better way to live your life. I
think honestly, the best advice that I could give to somebody, being now, like, having a business and that's prospering and having it for, you know, almost 2 years now, mm-hmm. is you have to understand people. I think that's the best advice. Like, business, it's a learning experience, and it'll come, and there'll be a lot of people more than willing to help you. But you have to understand people, because not everyone's looking out for your best interest, right? Mm. Read books, man. How to Make Friends and Influence People. That's a good one. The new book by Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
That's a really good book, because you understand emotions. You know, you talk about compassion, empathy, love lost, love in general. You know, I've read that book, and there's things that I'm like learning about myself. I'm like, oh man, this is a really good way to put this, or this puts this into perspective, or wow, I need to fix this. I did this wrong. Yeah, so I think reading books is very powerful. Yeah.
Definitely. Reading books it's hard for me to do, because I think I'm always revved up and I feel anxious to do stuff.
Yeah.
But the times when I have sat down and read books, it's so interesting, because it's similar to having a conversation with someone, but you can just sit so deeply with someone's thoughts, someone who you couldn't interact with in your daily life because they're inaccessible to us.
Yeah.
But being able to sit deeply with their thoughts it's almost more intimate than having a conversation with them, because they spent time thinking about and curating their best thoughts, and then they're presenting that to you. And it's books are, I wish I made more time to read. Hopefully
it's actually very intimate.
Yeah.
I beat this very early on, but I know there's some people that struggle with, like, going somewhere by themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Like eating by yourself or whatever. Yeah.
So my thing was kind of like, I would go to coffee shops and read by myself. And for me, it's like, oh man, like, I don't want people to see what I'm reading, because it's kind of vulnerable. Like, it's, you know?
Yeah.
But when you're reading your book and you're so in it, like, you don't feel like you're by yourself, you know? You're somewhere else, man.
Totally.
And the power of a book is amazing, that it extracts you from where you're at. It takes you somewhere. And I've lost track of time in coffee shops just reading books, you know? I think that's cool.
Yeah.
This is if I was listening to myself speak now, my younger self, like, I hate books, man. I hate reading. Like, I'm going to go listen to music or do something else. But, hey, look at me now. I could still make music. I could still paint. I could still do my day job, take care of my kids, and read books.
Yeah.
Like, you can make time for anything you want.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So what do you... It's interesting because it seems like a lot of those 5-year goals you said. How long ago was that you set all those goals?
I quit Kaiser. I started at 21, and I quit Kaiser when I was 25.
20. Oh, okay. So you kind of you already hit those goals, the 5-year goals.
I hit them before my 5-year mark.
Do you think about that going forward? Do you still
What are my 5-year goals now?
Yeah, like do you still think about that?
Yeah, as soon as I'm very ambitious.
You don't have to share, but up to you.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm very ambitious, and I think that I was always like kind of scared of that too. Like maybe I'm overly ambitious, right?
Don't want to let yourself down by setting kind of overly.
Yeah. Even with like people. Yeah. Oh man, I just met Jimmy. He's so cool. And then if I set you to this high standard, then I might let myself down just because you didn't meet that, and you never had to. It's just I did that to myself.
Just kind of playing games in your own head. Yeah.
So I've tried to learn to work on that, but yeah, man, I have, after completing those goals, I have other goals now, for sure, and I'm very excited to see them play out. I'm working towards them every day. Yeah. So, we'll see. That's
awesome. Yeah, I think it's important. I think about goals. I think on a 1, 5, 10-year basis, and I just try and at the end of the year think about it, and I think throughout the year I try and think about it as well and make them. I don't know. I like to make them very ambitious in the long term and reasonable in the short term, and like aimed at that long term thing. But yeah, it's interesting. I think I started doing this a couple of years ago, where at the beginning of the year I would set goals and then I would revisit them at the end of the year. And when I look back at like my 2019 or 2018 goals, there were so many of them. It was like 50 podcasts, 100 YouTube videos, 10 songs, like blah, 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 save X amount of money. And I only did maybe one of those things, And
that's still good because you checked off some of the list,
Right.
The thing is, you probably learned that, maybe my list doesn't have to be that big.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When I started painting, I wrote this goal down in my notepad. I feel like that's helped me out a lot to write, like, if I'm upset about something or I'm feeling emotional about something, I'll write it in my notepad, almost like a letter to myself. And I put, I started painting. People bought my first 2 paintings. By March of 2022, I want to have a portfolio of about 8 to 10 pieces, so where I can sell them at a farmer's market or something, right? That was my goal from November till March of 22.
November of 21.
Till March of 2022.
So like a 6-month window, 5-6 months.
Yeah. Man, right now, I have maybe 11 pieces that are completed, and I have a total of 16 projects. So
wow. So you ran past it, and it's January.
Yeah, and it's January. So total of 16 projects that I've worked on, and I have 11 of those finished. And my goal was to have 10 tops by March.
So do you think that when you initially set that goal, did you think it was ambitious or did you think it was conservative?
No, I thought it was reasonable.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Do you think if you would have set a goal that you felt was unreasonable, like let's say 50,
I wouldn't have done it. I think I would have gave up as soon as I hit 5 because
it would have been daunting.
Like, 50's too much. How am I going to get there?
Yeah. I think goal setting is it's such a, I don't know. It's such a art, and it's very, because I think I totally agree with that. When I started making music, I set a goal of myself for I'm gonna make 1 song every 2 weeks until I make 10 songs, and I ended up making like 22 songs. And I think it was because 1 song every other week is very reasonable, right? You can spend 1 week kind of playing with sounds, thinking about the idea, and then the last weekend you can kick it into high gear and put it on sound, whatever, right? But it's, if that goal was, even if that goal was one song every week, I probably wouldn't have done it, right? Like I needed that 1 week to kind of play with ideas, and then that second week to get that sense of urgency. And like for me, that was enough time. But I think, yeah, and then once you don't hit that goal, it's kind of like this negative cycle. So I think it's important to set reasonable goals and then allow yourself to move. I think it creates that, I don't know if you've ever heard of like house money effect, right? But basically like when you're playing Texas Hold'em or you're playing blackjack, right? And you bring $500, you win $500, and then you take your original $500 off the table. You're playing with the house's money, so it's all upside from there. Like that feeling with creating or with business or just with generally goal setting, it's such a powerful thing. And I think it's an interesting principle because I think we're generally playing with house money, right? Like we're okay. Like we're, we have enough to live and to eat and we're comfortable. We have friends, we have family. Like we're okay. And so I try and get myself to set more ambitious goals and remind myself that my life is generally stable and that I can play with house money and take risks and try things. But yeah, it's hard to do in areas that are new for me. But I think looking back at evidence on my life of, okay, I was able to set that music goal of 10 songs and then do it and supersede it. And like now I got this podcast thing, I'm trying to do 20 podcast episodes this year. And so like seeing that goal, like I feel like that's reasonable and something that I want to do. And I think the more you do it, the more you believe in your ability to do it in the future. Like with painting, I'm sure that's given you like confidence in just generally in your life and agency. I don't know, but yeah, well, I guess what's it kind of done?
It's given me, it's almost therapeutic, but it's like, for me, it's therapy. But the fact that it reaches people in a certain way where they want it, it's like, man, I don't know. It's
satisfying to another level.
Yeah. I can't even explain it,
Yeah.
Because it's like, man, I created something that makes someone else feel good.
Yeah.
I think as far as like goals, shoot for the moon, but build the ladder.
Yeah.
Build the ladder to get up there.
Make it reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get into flow state when you're painting? Do you think? Or
100%, man.
Yeah.
I start so many projects sometimes where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, or it's just blank, or I'm staring at it for a while.
Yeah.
I even have pictures, like progress pictures of art where it looks like it's going to go in a certain direction, and then when you see the end of it, it's like completely different.
Yeah.
It's just because I'm flowing. I don't have anything set. It's going to go in whatever direction, and I'm 100% okay with that.
Yeah, that's the best feeling in the world. I think normally in life, our minds race so much. All these things we didn't do, right? Like girlfriend, or didn't do something for mom, or didn't do something for business, or I didn't read, or I didn't work out, or I didn't eat, like all these 90 things that we didn't do, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, and we just have that monkey mind. But then when you're creating something and you're in the flow, I bet you maybe sometimes you get it when you're working as a barber as well, but just when you're able to fully focus and engage yourself in a task, that's the most satisfying. I'm the happiest in that moment.
I am so grateful for barbering because it has been that escape for a long time, to the extent where I feel like the richest man in the world because I feel like I have an upper hand on life that a lot of people don't have. And it's the sense that I love my job. I may not be the richest man financially, but I'm the richest man because I can go to work every day and be excited about it. Not everyone could say that.
Very few people. Few. That is super rare.
Dude, I was in Hawaii. I took a vacation with my family to Hawaii, and I was having a great time, and it's relaxing. But I missed work.
That's
not
crazy. Because
I'm a workaholic. I could be very lazy. I'll be honest with you, but it was because I love my job so much that I missed the act of cutting hair. I miss the act of creating, and I miss the interaction with my friends.
Yeah, that's the cool. I always love that idea of things that you do that kind of scratch two itches or accomplish two things at one time. For me, I started doing CrossFit a couple months ago, and I get that physical fitness health side, but it's also incredibly social. Like there's people that I go see at CrossFit that I'm so excited to see week in week. It's like, and it's not, it's you know, people from all walks of life, people that are way older, people that are a little bit younger, and it's like that's such. If you took that away, I think I would feel very depressed, and I would feel very disconnected because you know my work is just on a computer and I'm you know on Zoom all day. But like that interaction for me is like so critically important, and it's awesome because I'm getting fit and I'm seeing these people that I love. You know, so in with what you do in your business, is like you're making money, you're being productive, and you're also hanging out with Marco and your friends, and that's like. I can see why that would be something that you love and miss even when you're on vacation, because that probably just feel like that time feels so well spent. I try and find things like that where it's like I invest my time in and like I put one in and I get two out, you know, like those things. And like with CrossFit, I feel like that's such a true thing, right? With creating music, I feel like that is there too, right? I put one in, I get two out. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the things that I do in my life, I put one in and get 0.5 out, but I somehow, you know, like the doom scrolling on Instagram, whatever, like wasting time, being lazy, stuff like that. But I mean, I guess there's a time and place for that. But no, that's cool that you found a profession that you get to do that.
I think the most pivotal part of my life was me being like an adolescent, like a preteen, you know, and then even a teenager, early teenager, was that I was in a rebellious mindset where like, oh, I don't need anyone. I'm okay with being alone. Even like friends would disappoint you at that time because you're just mad at the world. And I told you I moved out when I was 16 earlier. When I moved out, an old man shared a home with me. He was my dad's father-in-law, right? And this guy, he was so stubborn and like mad at the world that his kids didn't talk to him. No one would visit him. That's why he was by himself. And my dad's like, hey, look, this is the deal. You can live here with him, but he needs you to feed him. So before you go to school, you got to feed him like breakfast. And then when he goes to work or when you come home from school, you got to feed him lunch. Dinner we'll take care of.
Wow.
Right?
That's a lot of responsibility for a kid.
Dude, I lived in the outhouse and back at his house. So I didn't even stay in the house. I stayed in an outhouse.
Wow.
Yeah. Me and my dad, we had turned this man's garage into a room. And I stayed there. We used to call it the cabin.
That's funny.
And so I lived there from like 16 to 20 years old or 21 years old. Yeah. I lived there for a really long time. And I take care of this guy. And he hated me at first. I remember like if I went in, he's old school, mind you. So if I went in wearing like soccer shorts after soccer practice, he'd be like, don't be coming to my house looking like a fag. Why are you wearing
Really?
Yeah, like he was mean.
Oh.
And I could have easily been like, especially being a rebellious teenager, I could have been like, screw this guy.
Yeah.
But I always thought it's funny because he's so old. That's how I processed it.
Just
it's funny because he's
senile.
so old. Yeah. And then he saw that I never that I have tough skin. And this is why I say tough, going back to like talking shit with your friends and making fun of each other, why it's so important.
Yeah.
I got this tough skin from that when I interacted with this old person, he acknowledged that it didn't bug me. And he was like, oh, this guy's cool. And he started being a lot nicer to me, you know? And then it got to the point where I would make jokes with him and I would tease him and we were friends, and man, I would prank him so much and he would prank me. And this is an old man in his 90s. He died when he was 104 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
And so, you know, I spent a lot of my like a big part of my life, an important part of my life, being with him, and he took care of me and I took care of him. And there was a lot of things where like he had to pee from a bag. That was not my responsibility, but there was times where he had accidents, so I had to change the bag. Or there was times where he was using the restroom and he would slip and fall, and it was messy, and I had to pick him up and clean that mess. And keep in mind, as a kid, you're grossed out and you're also like, oh, I shouldn't have to do this. But it's just kind of like the humane thing to do. How do I leave this man laying there with crap or whatever, right?
Right.
But it gave me such life experience that I would never trade, because I think it strongly made me who I am now. It showed me empathy. It showed me responsibility. Like, I go to this guy's gravesite every so often just to like thank him. Like, man, you're never gonna know what you meant to me, but you were amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a powerful life experience. You know?
Oh yeah, man. Like,
something that you were probably like, what the hell did I walk into?
Oh yeah, at that time I didn't even understand. I didn't even understand it till now. And in retrospect, at 21, even when I moved out, I didn't understand it. When I saw his body kind of like deteriorating, I couldn't see him anymore, because I was like, oh, I don't want to remember him like that. He's too far gone now. Like, he's not himself anymore.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see him in his last days. And then at the funeral, his actual family went, and I felt like, oh, I can't interrupt this. Like, I'm that actual family. So I saw it from afar. But yeah, I never even got that closure, like where I got to say goodbye to him. So I would say years after he passed.
But he played, it's awesome that you got to play an important role in his life. And I'm sure, just even if he didn't express it, I'm sure having you there and having him around, because I think when you're aging and being alone and being lonely is a huge thing, so having you there, like, I'm sure, and obviously you took care of him in ways that you was in no way your responsibility, but like, you did so much for him and he did so much for you. And that's
I can't even watch the movie Up without tearing up now, because I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah. I think life is beautiful and precious, and at the end, it's pretty, it's beautiful. It's kind of dark, It's really like I think my grandparents, passed pretty quickly. It wasn't kind of a long, drawn out kind of suffering, but I have some friends who are dealing with that now, and you just hear about it, and it's kind of just the most like helpless sort of thing. It's really depressing, right? Because you have no control over it, and there's an inevitability to it. And I guess we'll see more and more of it, unfortunately, as we as we age, and our parents age, and our friends, and so on and so forth. But I think you can walk away from that situation thinking like you can be proud of your interactions with that person and that relationship.
I think that's the important thing that we have to take away from death, is that like that's what's certain for sure. So you don't want to die thinking like you didn't. I always think about it like this. I make light of it. I'm like, man, I can't die today, because if I die today, I'm gonna be pissed and come back as a ghost because I didn't finish what I was trying to do, or because today sucked and I can't.
Right.
I need to die with a better day or something, Yeah. But I think that we need to look at it like that, because a lot of times we're scared to make certain decisions, and we hold ourselves back from being the best version of ourselves, or the most vulnerable versions of ourselves. And I've talked about vulnerability a lot today, but it's because it's something I struggled with a lot up until like the last 2 months, honestly. Yeah. So right now it's like vulnerability is the word, it's like,
that's the thing you're focused on.
Yeah. But that's just my personal experience. That's something that I didn't acknowledge, that I chose not to acknowledge at all. But there's other people that choose to not acknowledge their potential, or even heartbreak and love. Like, there's people that choose heartbreak because it's like, oh, I don't want to let myself love right now, or whatever. But the thing is, you could die tomorrow and you may have never known love or heartbreak,
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Damn. That's deep. I feel like we got to end it on there. That's a good note right there, It's, I think death gives you perspective. Like, it makes you value people. Even some ways you look onto people who have passed, and you maybe make them better than they actually were in certain ways, right? But it's also, I don't know, I guess gives you perspective, right, of kind of every day, and time matters, time's precious, and yeah, I feel like that. I feel like that a lot too. You know, it's like some days I think I just kind of burn through, and I'm waiting to get to the next day in a regard.
Yeah.
But it's like my most precious resource. And like, what would I do to get that day back one of these days back on the tail end? You know, I feel like I'm always striving for some day in the future when I'm completely financially safe and I have all the things that I want, and like then I'll live whatever. But I think when I'm at that phase, when I'm 40, whatever it is, I'll probably look back on now and think, man, that kid had so much potential and so much time and health, and like he was super sharp and could still learn stuff and so on and so forth. And I'll like probably 20 or 40-year-old Jimmy will envy 27-year-old Jimmy.
Don't you do that now about your 20-year-old?
I totally do.
I
totally do.
Dude, I was such a free spirit at 21 because I had no responsibilities.
Yeah.
That if I had $300 in my pocket, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go tour San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we did do that, me and my friends, and somehow we would make it back.
Yeah.
I remember me and my friends decided to go to Vegas one time.
Wow.
And we ran out of money, and I had to play guitar on the bridge that I think it connects like the Bellagio and another hotel.
I think there's people who like live under there.
Yeah, there is. And I'm playing on that bridge, man, and people are passing by, and within like 40 minutes we have like over $250 to get us home and get us food and get us a hotel for the night.
No way.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like crazy to think like, man, if I wouldn't have brought my guitar, we would have been stuck. And that's something that my friends and I still talk fondly about, because we're like, oh, you remember that time? And it's almost like, man, we were so crazy, but also like, look at that resilience.
Totally.
Like we made it happen. And also we were fearless. We went over there and we weren't sure how we were going to go home. We didn't even care, but we knew somehow we'll make it back.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. And you and I talked about that earlier with people that we love, where it's like they'll call on someone like, oh, I need money or this or that. We didn't have that. We were just kind of like, we'll make it happen. Our last resort was calling our parents because we were in Vegas and we weren't supposed to be there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like taking that accountability, like, oh, I know I wasn't supposed to be here. I'm going to find a way to make it back.
Yeah. That's cool. I think you can look back on the younger version of you and be proud of that moment.
Man, I have
that version.
I would watch that movie because I love the adventures, man. I miss them, and they were so fun. Yeah. And I know there's gonna be more of that. And like you said, when I'm 40, you can look back at your older version, the old version, and you'll be like, man, this kid was bright, or this kid was this or that. I think that's really nice. Yeah,
I think I have a mix of. I guess last thing, I'm curious because I'm thinking about it now, but like, how do you think the 40-year-old version of you would critique the 28-year-old version of you, or the current version of you?
Man, I don't know, because I don't know if I'll make it to 40. Like, realistically, we were talking about death. I don't know if I'll ever be 40 years old. I'd like to be, I don't know.
You're just not sure.
Yeah. So I literally do live every day thinking like, oh, tomorrow's not promised, so I'm going to try my best today. So once I get to 40, I'll let you know.
Yeah. We'll do another episode.
Yeah. But
12 years.
Right now I'm just looking forward to tomorrow. And I'll leave it off with my best friend, Miguel, in conversation. So he didn't even know how much this meant to me. But he says, hey, you know how sometimes something happens and you think you're going to have a bad day? Like, he's like, but you made it a bad day. Because let's say you get up and you want a glass of milk in the morning, right? With your breakfast. And then you get up and you don't have eggs and you don't have a glass of milk. And you're like, fuck, man, today's shitty because it's already starting off like this. But what if you thought about it in the perspective of, I don't have eggs, I don't have milk. You know what? I'm going to go to the grocery store, and instead of a glass of milk, I can buy coffee too. Yeah. And dude, I was going to have eggs and turkey for breakfast, but now I'm going to have eggs and pancakes and waffles. Yeah. Like, you can make it a grand thing instead of an adventure almost, but you chose to dwell on the fact that you didn't even have it in your fridge. But you had, like it just baffled me. I was mind blown. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's such a small ass problem, and you're gonna start a bad day because of that, and then your whole day will be bad. Fuck, I don't have gas in my truck.
Yeah.
See, I didn't have breakfast today. I don't have gas in my truck. I'm gonna be late to work. I'm at work. Fuck, man, my first client of the day sucks. You keep making things
And
bad.
we do that
and bad.
all the time. We do that all the time.
We do, and I'm telling you, he just said this passing in conversation, but it really stuck to me. So every day, I open that fridge in the morning and I'm like, oh damn, I don't have eggs. Cool, I'll go to the grocery store right now.
Yeah.
Or you know, like I make it good, man.
Yeah.
You have to make every day good, because that might be your last day.
I love that. That's a good perspective and outlook on life.
Yeah.
I think is that positive outlook. That's hard to do, but that's a good reminder. I'll try and think about that more. I'm always in that zone where I'm trying to make, something small will just kind of fuck up my whole day, and I'll be pissed off about it, and then I'll do the next thing kind of shitty, and then it'll just, it's a cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
We can do that to ourselves so easily. So, what was your friend's name? Who told
Miguel.
You? Miguel, dude. Shout out to Miguel.
Yeah, shout out to Miguel in Dallas, Texas. Which, going back to Wolf and Rye, Miguel plays a very important part in Wolf and Rye's just even the name. So Miguel helped me out with understanding the business and learning to work and manage through this stuff, like all the paperwork, the city permits, all that stuff, right? He was a big help with that. And then Idle Rye was a bar in Dallas, Texas. That was Miguel's place right there. And he was the guy, And Idle Rye closed with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like, you know what, we're going to have a bar-style barbershop. We should use that rye to let people know you can drink here. But also it's an homage to this business that shut down,
That's interesting.
Yes.
That closed, and then Wolf and Rye opened.
Yeah, so now we got Idle Rye. We got rye from, for Wolf and Rye. And then the name Wolf, where we get the wolf from, me and Johnny were looking through bad reviews on Yelp, and it's like, oh shit. Someone said, this barbershop is so whack. These guys don't know what they're doing. They suck. It's as if they were raised by wolves.
Oh,
and I really, really like that.
That's chills, man.
We really
like that.
And we're like, okay, wolves.
Wolf and Rye. Damn, I didn't know that. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I had a chance to go to that bar. That bar sounds pretty awesome.
Idle Rye was a good place, man. I got to visit it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go out to Dallas a couple times.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
it's a good time.
Oh man. All right, it's almost midnight. I know you got a little bit of a drive, but man, we went for almost 2 hours, dude. Thanks for coming on the pod, and you'll have to come back on sometime soon. But you're my first guest, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I feel honored that you even hit me up. So this is cool. Thank you.
Dude. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you. Yeah. All right, let me shut this down.